Chapter 144 to 146. Lightning Release, Lightning Susanoo Armor. Streams of crackling blue lightning continuously fell from the sky, connecting with the tip of Ringo's raised sword. Every time a stream fell, a loud booming sound and strong shockwave followed, sending Due, who was close, flying back, and forcing the members of the Kiri 7 swordsmen to leap back and brace themselves to not be blown away. It was Raiga Kurasuki who first noticed what was happening. The natural lightning that should have dispersed after falling from the sky actually gathered around Ringo, wrapping itself around her body while becoming more concentrated. He knew she was doing some kind of insane and powerful lightning jutsu, a jutsu that would instantly kill even him, the best lightning user of Kirigakure. That's why he wanted to stop her. The other members of the 7 noticed a bit later and instantly wanted to disrupt Ringo, but the shockwaves were too strong. No matter what they did, they were kept at bay, gritting their teeth in frustration and watching as the natural lightning started to become visible and shape up into a pulsing blue fiery aura. 5 seconds passed and the blue aura started slowly solidifying, creating electric blue samurai armor on Ringo, made of natural lightning held together and shaped by lightning chakra. She looked as if she was armored in mini Susanoo, only 2 intense electric blue orbs shining from the fearsome helmet. Dropping down the arm with the sword she used as a lightning rod, Ringo mumbled, "I still have to train a lot to do this instantaneously." She was really disappointed with the time it took her to create the armor coating. Her brown eyes turned electric blue as a side effect of pulling unadulterated nature energy into the lightning chakra armor. It made the armor stronger, but also allowed her to enter something Rei called pseudo-sage mode. Instead of balancing the nature energy with the chakra in her body, Rei said she is balancing the nature energy in her armor, made of natural lighting with the chakra in her body, while her lightning chakra was holding it all together. To get that right was quite the pain in the ass. After all, it was impossible to do it normally. It was Rei who found the solution to that little problem after a month of researching. Due was flabbergasted to the core when he recognized what he was watching. The woman in front of him half opened all of her inner gates. Shuddering fright washed over him as his bushy eyebrows disappeared in his hairline. Never once would he imagine it was possible to open an inner gate halfway and use it to perform a jutsu. Due's fright only increased when the armored form of Ringo half turned towards him, and the electric blue intense orbs landed on his small frame. Ringo looked at him for a second before speaking. "Run along towards the team you saved. This will get messy fast, and you are frankly in the way." Due had no idea how to react to that, but his fear was instantly suppressed when, after hearing her speak about his son, he jumped up, "Youth!" and started running in the direction his son's team left. All 7 members of the Kiri swordsmen and Ringo deadpanned at the green blur. And just like that, the green screaming weirdo lives on to spread youth-induced heart attacks all over Konoha.
Vengu sight.
According to Rei, having 2 of them in one village might just be the thing that could finish the village off at a later date. Nevertheless, I am a bit disappointed if that was the best genjutsu user of Konoha. He didn't even use his unbreakable youth genjutsu Rei praised so much. She shook her head in disappointment with a relaxed posture, but the corner of her eye already stalked her first prey. Fuguki Suikazan only barely managed to raise Samahata in order to block Ringo's slash, who just appeared in front of him without any telling sign. Shit! Her speed was enhanced to such a degree. He thought in a slight panic as sparks flew from the spot where Samahata met Ringo's nameless chakra blade, covered in a bluish fiery aura that occasionally crackled with lightning. The panic quickly subsided, however, as he realized they were almost matched when it came to strength. That was a big surprise too, though. He was considered to be one of the physically most able in the Kiri 7 swordsmen. After all, wielding a greatsword required a great deal of strength. So the former wielder of Kiba blades, swords that needed agility and flexibility instead of strength, was quite surprising. Fuguki flashed the bored Ringo a brief grin as he saw his comrades react and jump towards Ringo. They were still a bit far away, but, touching Samahata with a sword covered in chakra? This woman really learned nothing during her brief stay as one of the 7. There was a reason why Kiba wielder never fought against Samahata wielder. There was just no way to parry or block a sword that sucked chakra when one was relying on coating his swords in chakra. The fiery lightning aura around Ringo's blade instantly vanished and Fuguki's grin widened. He did not notice that Ringo already let go of that sword, which made him a bit late in seeing her second blade approaching his waist. When he finally spotted it, he could only move Samahata's handle to the left, blocking Ringo's second sword with it. Fuck, even handle can suck chakra. Ringo inwardly cursed as she felt the chakra in her sword quickly disappearing and let go of her remaining sword. Samahata was now positioned horizontally in front of her at the level of her head, since Fuguki was a giant of a man and she only reached his chest. He was fully grinning at her with a mocking gaze at the now disarmed woman. He could not believe how easily he forced her to abandon her weapons. In his opinion, she was the biggest shame of the Kiri 7 swordsmen. You got Russ Dash. and Ringo, who was still clad in the lightning Susanoo armor, simply willed her lightning chakra to make the natural concentrated lightning extend from her palm, and a shining blue sword made out of natural lightning appeared in her left hand in a split second. Instead of attacking, Ringo just swiftly positioned the back of her sword in the middle of Samahata's handle, between Fuguki's hands that were holding the upper and lower part of the long handle of the greatsword. Her right hand also flashed, and another sword, made of concentrated natural lightning, appeared. Chill ran up Fuguki's spine. No wonder she let herself be disarmed if she could create lightning swords at will. He knew he had to do something, and since the back of her lightning sword was connecting with Samahata's handle, Samahata hissed in pain as it tried to suck chakra out of the sword. Ringo's blade, however, just slightly shimmered. Unlike the fiery lightning aura that coated the blades from chakra metal, her current created swords were mostly made of natural lightning held together by Ringo's lightning chakra, like the rest of her armor. Samahata managed to eat up the lightning chakra, but all Ringo had to do was keep supplying the sword with more and more of it to make it keep the shape, while Samahata was getting constantly zapped as it tried to eat the chakra. Needless to say, it didn't take even a split of a second for Samahata to refuse to eat the chakra. Fuguki could force it, but at that point, he had other problems. While he tried to make Samahata eat the chakra from the lightning sword, Ringo slashed the sword in her right hand at his neck in a piercing move. Assessing his situation, Fuguki quickly realized he had only two options. He could not evade while holding Samahata because of the sword hooked around the middle of Samahata's handle. Refusing to be disarmed, he went for the other one, a fence, letting go of Samahata's upper part of its handle with his right hand, and at the same time, pulling his left hand that held the handle on the lower part back. Fuguki smashed Samahata into Ringo's unprotected left side without any obstruction, since the sword in Ringo's was still hooked around the middle of Samahata's handle. Fuguki's eyes widened when Ringo didn't even budge from the force of Samahata's blade slamming into her. His plan was simple: shred into her left side and send her flying away, freeing Samahata and creating distance. But Ringo didn't move even an inch. The lightning Susanoo armor on her left side was shimmering not unlike the lightning blade, just on a bigger scale, while Samahata was shrieking in horrific pain, trying to wiggle away from the armor of natural lightning covering Ringo. Even the enlarged spikes that covered her whole left side and were supposed to shred her couldn't even pierce through the armor. Fuguki didn't have much time since Ringo's sword was almost upon his neck. His left hand let go, and he jumped back while Samahata finally disconnected from Ringo's armor and fell on the ground next to her, wheezing in pain while smoke was rising from between its scales. Ringo smirked at Fuguki, who was looking at her with immense rage and a bit of humiliation at being disarmed in a 4-second-long exchange. Ringo didn't have much time to gloat, however. The other 6 members of the 7 were already upon her, their swords slashing, piercing, and stabbing into her figure with a loud clang, or boom in case of Shibuki. But their wielders' ferocious winning grins disappeared when her armor blocked all of their attacks without even leaving a scratch on the armor. Well, so much for that. Ringo amusedly quipped and pulsed the chakra in the lightning swords she held. A split second later, the swords burst into a large energy wave that slammed into the 6 swordsmen surrounding her and sent them flying back at breakneck speed, while the lightning swords dissolved. Fuguki hatefully watched as his associates were flung away, and Ringo casually bent down, picking Samahata up by its handle. Samahata tried to pierce her hand with some spikes, but again, they could not penetrate the armor covering Ringo's hand, and one fast zap made the sword very obedient. Ringo, with a gleeful smile, pulled out a special stasis storage scroll given to her by Rei. Normal storage scrolls could not store living things, hence Samahata or any other of the 7 swords, for that matter, could not be stored, no matter if they possessed sentience or not. Hence, this feat required special high-level Fuinjutsu. Fuguki could only helplessly watch as Ringo stored Samahata and put the scroll into her pocket. All the while she stared straight at him with a mirthful gaze. Ha! Why is he glaring at me so much? I am a ninja, not some honorable samurai who would throw the blade you dropped back to you. I would naturally take the only thing that could possess any sort of danger in this fight out of the equation as soon as possible. Does he even realize this is basically 1 versus 7? Ringo thought, resisting a strong urge to shake her head in disappointment at him. Her armor didn't take much chakra, since she only had to hold the natural lightning together. But once Samahata started eating the chakra from a large area, she had to quickly resupply it, and just the single second when Samahata was connected with her left side cost her 2% of her whole reserves. There is no way I would leave such a weapon in the hands of my enemies. Ringo sighed as she connected 2 chakra strings with the handles of her nameless chakra metal blades on the ground and pulled them back into her grip, coating them in her lightning Susanoo armor, which made them many times sharper and tougher. She only started with the fiery lightning aura, coating her blades at the start of her fight against Fuguki, to goad him into a false sense of security when she dropped her blades, after all. Well then, Ringo's eyes flashed in giddiness when she saw Fuguki taking out an ordinary greatsword from a storage scroll, while the other 6 members of the Kiri 7 swordsmen stood up and prepared for a fight. Let's start the real testing of my new technique. Juzo jumped at Ringo the second he regained his balance, forcing her to block a sweeping slash from his Kubikura Bocho with her right blade. Not even a split second later, Jinen's Kabadawari's axe met Ringo's left blade as sparks flew all around. Jinen's blow was much stronger than Juzo's, but nevertheless, it fulfilled its purpose and Ringo was now in a deadlock. Ringo knew Jinen would most likely use his hammer to strengthen the force behind his axe, so she leaned on her left leg, putting as much weight onto it as possible to brace for the impact that would come from her left side. Jinen smirked, pushing himself from the ground into a spin, and before Ringo registered what he planned, his hammer impacted Kubikura Bocho instead of his axe. Ringo, who was still blocking Kubikura Bocho with her right blade, and was balancing herself for a strong blow from her left side, didn't last even a second before her guard broke and Kubikura Bocho met her waist, bending her and sending her flying through the air to the left. Despite preferring working solo, the 7 swordsmen of the mist knew what teamwork is and could work together seamlessly. This was shown by the direction Ringo was sent flying to, straight at Jinpachi, the wielder of Shibuki. Ringo tried to regain her balance by twisting in midair, but a string caught her leg, again making her unbalanced as Kushimaru kicked her chest, sending her back on her track towards Jinpachi even faster than before. Kushimaru landed onto his feet and instantly fell onto his ass as smoke started rising from his right leg, the one he used to kick Ringo's armor. Clearly, he got zapped by the natural lightning in return and would not regain his nimbleness anytime soon. Jinpachi held Shibuki like a baseball bat, and when Ringo's body was finally in his striking range, he swung. A booming explosion resounded from his explosive sword as the dust was sent into the air. The ball of dust was broken up not a second later by Ringo's body that was sent flying in yet another direction by the explosion, right at the wielder of Hiramakerii, who was already waiting for her with a hammer made of chakra. Ringo, however, twisted her body midair as she was about to reach into Arata's striking range. This time, there was nobody able to stop her. Her foot kicked the ground, which completely changed the trajectory of her flight, making her crash through the air towards the ground instead of towards Arata. Crouched on all 4, Ringo slid on the ground in front of Arata, who didn't expect her to do something like this. Ringo seamlessly transferred all the kinetic force from her flight into sliding, mitigating it slightly, and then she pushed against the ground, again changing the sliding into the spin. It was so fast that Arata didn't even have time to register when exactly she appeared in front of him, as her body was about to spin from right to left, and with that, her right blade was rushing towards his neck. Ringo was already in Arata's guard. He didn't have time to change the shape of Hiramakerii, and with a massive weapon like the chakra hammer, it would be hard to counter, so he was forced to go defensive and block. Pulling the hammer slightly towards his left, Ringo's natural lightning-coated blade crashed into the chakra-made hammerhead, cracking the ground under them from the force, causing Arata's knees to bend. Nevertheless, Arata was already in the process of changing Hiramakerii into the shape of 2 swords to match Ringo's dual-wielding. He was indeed the best to block her, or stop her momentum, as both used energy-made or coated blades, and both could dual-wield. And as Ringo spotted, he divided Hiramakerii into 2, while changing its shape into some kind of oval chakra blades. She decided to take the kitty gloves off. The twerp was really arrogant if he wanted to fight with 2 swords against her of all people. Her left arm snapped into action, slashing towards the left blade of Hiramakerii, as Arata was barely done with the division of his sword. Needless to say, he couldn't put as much strength behind his block, and was sent sliding back, ending the deadlock of their right blades. Ringo didn't wait for him to regain his bearing and jumped forward, viciously slashing her swords, getting faster and faster. 1 slash, 2 slashes for 8-16. Lightning bolts cracked and snapped all around the duo of a petite redhead, who was like a rushing bull, and a tall blue-haired man who barely managed to block with his big oval swords made of chakra. Ringo's speed was increasing by slash, and Arata had really a big problem to block her fast-paced combo. Slowly, he started redirecting, parrying while retreating backward. Ringo's sword stopped as 3 blades landed on her from behind. Kubikura Bocho, Kabadawari, and Kiba wielders put their best into it, wanting to injure her while she was focused on Arata. Kubikura Bocho stopped on her neck. Both of Kiba's blades were flashing with lightning and trying to dig into her right side, in an upward stab that would reach her heart and right leg, right above a quite important artery. And Kabadawari's axe was in the middle of her back, right alongside her spine, as Jinen smashed his axe into it. The battlefield stilled. Arata was gasping for air, happy he held Ringo down long enough for the others to attack. His 2 Hiramakeris were crossed over his chest, stopping one of Ringo's stabs a few inches in front of his face. Really lucky. Pfft. Ringo suddenly snickered. Hearing that, the 4 swordsmen around her stiffened. 3 of them felt a chill go up to their spines when they realized that. How the heck is there not even a scratch on her armor? Kubikurabocho stopped on the armor coating her neck, many cracks appearing on the blade as the natural lightning reverted most of the force of the blow back onto the blade. Juzo's eyes widened. Sure, Kubikurabocho was broken many times, but never by its own attack. The lightning coating of Kiba blades shimmered down to inexistence almost instantly as the electric energy was absorbed by Ringo's armor. The only reason the Kiba blades were not damaged was their lightning attunement, and Raiga was forced to step back as his blades uncontrollably shook from the impact, causing his whole body to tremble, while his wrists screamed in pain as he tried to not let go of the vibrating Kiba blades. Kabutawari, the second Geinin, stuck his hammer onto the back of its axe, trying to use it as a wedge to break through Ringo's armor and dig into her spine. The force was completely negated, at least from his perspective. He didn't feel a thing. His axe, though. The whole force of his blow, and that of Ringo's armor's counter, was focused solely on the axe, causing it to shatter into pieces as two opposing forces squished it. Needless to say, Geinin was horrified at part of his sword that was supposed to be able to penetrate any defense being broken. Lightning armor, force reflection. Ringo's eyes gleamed. Did the idiots think I would not prepare for them? The previous exchange where she was sent flying was enough of a lesson for her. Clearly, having superb defense didn't mean she could not be unbalanced or sent flying. It might be still in the stage of development, but Ringo naturally already implemented a few tricks into her armor to increase her defensive and offensive power. Arata didn't see what happened behind Ringo. He still thought she was affected by the 3 blows to her back, and he just had to keep her in a deadlock while his associates penetrate her armor and finish her off, but with a mocking smile, Ringo suddenly lengthened the blade he was blocking. The one he stopped just a few inches in front of his face. And Arata was sent onto a permanent vacation as his head was skewered by a blade made of natural lightning, creating a charred hole into it. Didn't expect that, did ya, fucker? Ringo cheered while the lengthened part of the blade, made of natural lightning, retracted back into a coating around the chakra metal blade. Shit! The 3 swordsmen behind Ringo had all similar thoughts, wanting to distance themselves from her. They weren't stupid and knew the hunter just became prey. But Ringo would not let them go so easily when they had the guts to attack her back, right? Ringo's blades gleamed blue as she spun on her heel, sending a piercing stab at Geinin, who now held only the hammer part of Kabutawari. He quickly put the hammerhead in the path of Ringo's sword, blocking it, but Ringo was no longer paying him any attention as her feet impacted Juzo's chest, cracking most of his ribs while breaking some as lightning from her armor, shocked him unconscious, and the kick sent him flying way back, causing him to let go of Kubikurabocho that quickly spun in the air until it stopped by its blade burrowing into the ground. 2 down, Ringo hummed, half turning her head towards Geinin, who just now realized he was used only as a diversion. The situation was quite bad for him. He was closest to Ringo, half of his weapon was destroyed. Raiga was behind him without any way to help him fast enough for it to count, and other remaining members of the 7, who were capable of fighting, may have been on their way to intercept Ringo, but it was apparent they would not make it before she attacked him. Geinin took a defensive stance with his hammer. For now, he had to endure. Ringo looked behind where Kurirer Kushimaru was running at her, trying to hide his injured leg by acting all right. She then glanced to the right where Jinpachi Munashi with his shibuki was also approaching at a fast pace. To her left, Fuguki Suikazan ran at her with an ordinary katana. Smart, Ringo thought as she looked at the giant of a man. She knew he could run faster. That meant he was letting others engage her first. For someone who lost his sword, which was his best advantage, this was indeed the best approach. And finally, in front of her were Geinin, and Raiga, who was still slightly trembling, but looked determined to kill her. Ringo smirked. There was just one last test to do. Stabbing her swords into the ground. Their lightning Susanoo armor coating disappeared the second. She let go of them, and lightning started to surge around them. The sky above her also started crackling with blue bolts, as Ringo's lightning chakra seeped into the swords, making them perfect lightning rods. Watch out! Raiga shouted as his eyes briefly widened when he recognized the technique. Gritting his teeth, he started pouring his own lightning chakra in big amounts around himself in preparation for Ringo's technique. That's Raijin's descent. He was, however, too late. Lightning release, Raijin's descent. Ringo gleefully shouted, grinning like a loon with her arms theatrically spread apart, her hair standing up from both excitement and the exhilarating feeling of the static electricity coursing through her body. From the black clouds above, 2 blue lightning dragons coiled around themselves in a swift descent. Their maws as big as a house, deafeningly roaring at the ground, they were fast approaching. It barely took 2 seconds since they appeared high in the sky for them to crash on top of Ringo's head. A deafening boom resounded through the surrounding lands, while the lightning painted the world blue as the lightning energy instantly raced through the area. The trees in the radius of a few kilometers lost all of their leaves. The trees in the radius of a few hundred meters became charred. The ground in 100 meters radius became shallow, but still a massive crater, and the air crackled with spontaneous electric discharges all over the whole supercharged area. Raijin's Descent, a secret self-sacrificial technique passed from Kiba user to Kiba user through special scrolls. The so-called above S-rank one-time final army-killing move. Ringo was hunched over with her knees bent from the strain of 2 S-ranked lightning dragon jutsus, smashing together into her, as she discharged a large amount of lightning chakra around herself. It was not to protect her body, rather it was a part of the technique. She had to envelop herself in the pure unadulterated lightning chakra of the amount of high-level S-rank jutsu that would supercharge the 2 S-rank lightning dragons upon impact. When the 3 S-rank level energies met head-on, pushing against each other. Naturally, the 2 S-rank lightning dragons would win because the amount of energy was bigger. At this point, the user who is serving as director for the 2 lightning dragon jutsus would be torn to shreds because of the immense pressure of 3 S-rank forces focused on one point her. But the jutsu would continue. The power and energy contained in the 2 S-rank lightning dragon jutsus would literally be deflected from being vertical to being horizontal due to coming into contact with the S-rank lightning chakra the user exerted. This would also boost the 2 S-rank lightning dragon jutsus before it would all explode in a horizontal surge of lightning energy and pressure, devastating kilometers of land around the area of impact. It was not only Madara and Hashirama who were well above their peers in their time. Every village had 1 or 2 of these hidden experts who could fight these 2, even if such a fight would mean sacrificing their life. Hashirama would never decide to go the peaceful way and hand out the bijou in wishful thinking for peace, if the villages could be easily conquered by him without much bloodshed. His diaries certainly said enough. In the end, he was raised to be a ninja, not a monk. Shit. Ringo let out a deep breath and cursed. She could already feel the bruises forming on her body as her bones creaked. Thankfully, nothing is broken or cracked. She gritted her teeth through the pain as she straightened herself and stretched her protesting muscles, who were just put through a literal shredder made of pure energy. She would never use the jutsu if she didn't know she could survive it. Her armor would protect her, but Kirigakure had some recounting on Madara's and Hashirama's power, and Raijin's Descent was something made to counter Madara's Susanoo or Hashirama's wood techniques. In close range, the trees would be literally liquefied and Susanoo would be breached, injuring the user if not killing him. 60% of my chakra, huh? Ringo bitterly smiled as she realized how much of her chakra she had to use to concentrate her lightning Susanoo armor in order to prevent her muscles from tearing and bones from breaking. The armor still had massive cracks all over it, but was somewhat intact. Well, considering this would be way above my chakra reserve's limit before bonding with Rei. She subconsciously smiled while a slight blush dusted her cheeks as she thought about that while looking around, not forgetting she is still in combat. The first person she spotted was Raiga Kurasuke, who was a few meters away from her. He was kneeling on one knee, tightly gripping Kiba blades, stabbed into the ground as feint. Slowly dissipating bluish shimmering coating covered his body and swords. It was almost depleted and the man himself was already unconscious because of chakra exhaustion, but he survived. If he was even a meter closer to Ringo, his chakra reserves wouldn't make it. Well, I was ordered to leave him alive. Ringo sighed and shook her head. I so hate calculating these things. The next thing Ringo realized was that Jinin, who stood closer to her, and was in fact in front of Raiga when she started her technique, was nowhere to be found. I guess he was vaporized alongside the hammer, then. She shrugged. Not every weapon could withstand such concentrated lightning chakra at such a close range. Kiba survived because it was from the start attuned to lightning. Her own nameless blades were covered in a protective chakra layer. But Kabutoari? It had no chance without Jinin coating it in chakra, and the guy had no time for that. What a pity to lose one of the 7 swords. Ringo clicked her tongue. She looked to the right where Fuguki should have been located. Honestly, she didn't put much thought into his survival, so she had no idea if he withstood the jutsu. The second Ringo spotted his body, she mirthfully chuckled. The earth dome he hastily created for his protection must have been run through instantly, burying him in the dirt without him even knowing how or when he was knocked out. Ringo analyzed the situation as she saw Fuguki's half-buried bend-over unconscious form with his legs sticking up towards the sky from the ground. The guy survived only because he was lucky that his nose didn't get covered. Then again, the dirt most likely grounded most of the lightning, causing him to survive. How lucky. Left side. Ringo only nodded when she saw a bit charred, but still breathing form of Juzo Biwa. She kicked him far enough for the energy discharge to give only a slight caress to him. Merrily walking towards the half-liquefied, half-broken Kubikura Bocho, Ringo amusedly noted that the weakest of the 7 swords actually survived her technique at close range. She took it by the half-destroyed handle. He can still regrow it to its former state if he sacrificed about 200 liters of blood and 50 times of his chakra reserves. She threw it towards Juzo, where it landed with an audible clang. So, Jinpachi is dead. Ringo's eyes lingered on the dust-covered Shibuki on the ground. That explosion maniac would never let Shibuki out of his hand willingly. Her head turned slightly. Hiramakarei is also fine, but Arata's corpse was vaporized. Huh, no big loss there. Ringo briefly pondered if she should take Hiramakarei, but decided against it. One sword taken and another destroyed was enough spoils for now. Kiri still needed its swordsman. Ringo relaxed. I guess this is I-. Kushimaru's Nuabari stabbed into the biggest crack on Ringo's chest, right above her heart. Sparks and lightning discharges flew around as the Nuabari trembled from the strength its user used to push its tip against the impenetrable yet cracked lightning armor. Ringo blinked and Kushimaru's sweat dropped as he realized he fucked up. Oya? You are still breathing, Ringo asked as her empty hand snapped in Kushimaru's direction, taking hold of his masked face before she pulled him closer towards her. Normally he would surely dodge, since he was the most agile of the seven, even surpassing Ringo's past self, but now, Kushimaru's left side was incinerated. He lacked his left hand, he lacked half of his left leg, half of his left chest and stomach. Only the fact his wounds were burned shut prevented him from bleeding out by now. Ringo sighed in exasperation. Kushimaru was always vicious little shit. Of course, he would try to score a killing blow despite being half dead when his enemy finally relaxed. How the hell did he even survive? She didn't try to talk to him. There was nothing to talk about. She just started a chidori on her free hand and speared his chest through, tearing his heart out before using lightning discharge to destroy it. Blood started slowly dripping from under the chin of his mask as his body slackened. Kushimaru Kuriere died. Ringo threw his body onto the ground and stretched her arms up before leisurely walking towards her chakra blades, stabbed into the ground and picking them up. Oh well, job well done. Time to go home, I guess.